Good evening and welcome, and thank you for joining us this evening. Today I'd like to begin by acknowledging and paying my respects to the traditional custodians of this land on which we gather today, the Illawarra, Wadi and Dharawal peoples. The University of Wollongong extends its respect to elders past and present and those of the future, and to all Aboriginal people who are present today. We have a number of distinguished guests and speakers with us today. I'd like to welcome Professor Joe Shikaro, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor Academic at the University of Wollongong, Mr Hakan Harman, CEO of Multicultural New South Wales, and he will be delivering our key address today. Chairperson, Illawarra Migrant Heritage Project, Franca Farchi, and supporting members of the Migrant Heritage Project, with particular note to Gregor Cullen, who created and produced the exhibition panels, and Eva Castle, who spent many hours on curating and directing the installation of this exhibition, with notable support from Fidelia Pontarolo and Andrew Krajewski. We have UOW alumni, including Alumni Relations Manager Leanne Newsham, the Wollongong Art Gallery Reference Group members, and a number of our academic and professional staff are here today as well. Welcome again, and this welcome extends to all of the guests who are here with us this evening. This is a really important exhibition and event, for it was after the Second World War that Wollongong first became a multicultural city, and it's hard to imagine this region, this area, without the diversity of cultures, heritage and so forth. Prior to this time, Professor Stephen Castles in the book A History of Wollongong stated that Australia was considered as an insular country, suspicious of change and fearful of foreign cultural influences. And I must say, as a first-generation Australian, going to school as a kindergarten child with black bread and salami sandwiches, I was considered quite an oddity. And I envied those students with white bread and peanut butter. But that view has changed considerably since then. Half a century later, a large-scale immigration from all over the world changed all of that, and in ways that no one could predict. Nowhere is this more true than in the Illawarra, where cultural diversity has been a rapid economic growth and population. And it's remarkable to think that the population of Australia nearly doubled between 1947 and 1991. And even more remarkable is the population growth in the Illawarra, which experienced a nearly five-fold increase within a very short period of time. The number of overseas-born residents increased by an astonishing eightfold, from just over 9,000 to 73,000. Illawarra's industries and its economy were able to thrive through the significant growth of the available workforce and the economies of scale that were then enabled. What's distinctive about the migrant communities within the Illawarra is the diversity across the countries of origin and their cultures. The Illawarra has welcomed people and families from countries that we may anticipate, such as the UK, but also former Yugoslavia, Italy, Germany and New Zealand. Other significant countries include the Netherlands, Portugal, Greece, Spain, Poland, Malta, Ireland, Lebanon, the USA, Austria, Hungary, Finland, my country of heritage, and China, including Hong Kong. And among the more recent arrivals, the largest groups have been from the Philippines, Vietnam, Turkey and Chile. And if I haven't mentioned your country of origin or your country of heritage, please forgive me. We'll find a time to celebrate your place after the formal proceedings today. Many of you here today have experienced firsthand or have heard the stories and viewed the photographs of your forebears in the time of the migrant hostels that were established in Fairy Meadow, Unanderra or Berkeley. My mother emigrated to Australia at the age of 13 with her family from post-war Finland in search of a much more prosperous life. And the photos and the stories from their time in the Nissen huts at Fairy Meadow are treasured memories of their courage and the determination to create a new life. I can't even begin to imagine what it would be like to pack everything into a small suitcase and travel to the other side of the world with no language, no certain future of what the job prospects were going to be, not really knowing where you're going to live. Such courage these people presented. The Migration to the Illawarra exhibition is a collaboration between the Migration Heritage Project and the University of Wollongong Library. As you can see, the exhibition includes posters, photographs, publications and original memorabilia from the university archives and from many private collections, which chronicle the migrant history and heritage of the Illawarra. We're privileged today to have distinguished guests and speakers joining us. So please join me in welcoming our first speaker, Franca Facci. Franca is the founding and current chairperson of the Migration Heritage Project Illawarra. The Migrant Heritage Project has been working in the Illawarra since 2001 and aims to define, record and protect and promote migration heritage in the Illawarra. Franca's work is totally voluntary, and her passion for the history of migration to the area comes from the obvious absence of historical references in the city in which she grew up. For many years, Franca worked in the public health sector in multicultural health. Working in this field, Franca advocated for the health of migrants and refugees and for the need of public services and to have appropriate supports in place in order for people to have equitable health outcomes. Franca currently works in a different area of health but remains committed to the principles of equity in health. These principles and energy have spilled over into the voluntary work, and Franca now champions the need for the pages of history to be inclusive of a wider diversity of stories and experiences, so our future generations are aware of all of the people who have contributed to the building of their town, their city and their country. Please welcome Franca.
Thank you very much, everybody. Oh, it's a nice little crowd sitting down there. I couldn't see how many people were here. All friends and colleagues, distinguished guests, one and all. Thank you very much for coming along this evening and supporting our efforts. I also want to pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the land that we are gathering on today, and to elders past, present and future, and any Aboriginal people who are with us today. I'm really pleased and very proud to be here this evening to celebrate so much of what we have done as the Migration Heritage Project over the last 15 years, but also to celebrate our new collaboration with the University of Wollongong Library and Archives. I also hope at the end of my presentation to cast a challenge out to you as well, to ensure that we continue a lot of the work that we're doing at the moment and really step up our energy in this area. It's pretty amazing when I look around at all the examples of the work that we've done over the last 15 years. So this is just, a smattering of the work that we've achieved. We've done a lot of other work as well. But we've been around for about 15 years now, and since the time when a few of us got together, there was a little conversation, wouldn't it be good, a lot of our organisations and our older people in our community are diminishing. This is really sad. All the stories that Margie referred to about the power and the strength of people coming from other parts of the world to settle in a country that was so foreign and unknown to them. These are the stories that need to be told, because they will never be repeated again. This will never happen. This time in history will never happen again. And it's so critically important, we felt, that this was captured and recorded and documented for other people to read about and to understand who we are today is made up of the people who came here in those early days. At the time that we got together, we got a lot of support from all the multicultural organisations at the time. Everyone was going, yeah, this is a great idea. But as well as that, there was a lot of energy in those early years. 15 years, it sounds early years. 15 years ago, there was a lot of energy in the community around the heritage and cultural sector generally, which was really encouraging. I remember Wollongong Council actually commissioned a number of reports and feasibility studies around, what museums and what cultural organisations do we want to see or can we support in our city. And we also started with very lofty ambitions. I was looking back at some of our paperwork, and I remember our first submission had something like, "We will save every single organisation in Wollongong. We will record all the songs that people in the original countries of origin have forgotten now, but we still have in our community. We will record all the dialects that have been lost in Italy, but still are spoken in Balgownie and in Warrawong today. And we will also record all the unique languages that have been created in our new city, like Steelworks English, that is the amalgam of English and every other language of every other person who went to work there, and only they could speak it. But it's so true. Like, this is unique. This will never happen again. And these are the kinds of things that really we want to be able to record well. And cherish and look back on with fondness, but also for that to shape what our future looks like as well. One of the key principles, though, that we adhered to right from the beginning was that we didn't want to go about looking for a building to put old stuff in. We were really adamant that we wanted to build a repertoire of work that added to existing collections, museums and galleries. We were really aware that there were too many failing small organisations that had to raise money to pay the electricity bill, and that's not what we wanted to do. What we also felt that once we got up there and championed our stories, that everyone would rush and come and join us, and we'd have this magnificent new museum or gallery in our city. And I won't say it's sad to see that hasn't happened. However, we keep going because that's one of the visions, is that we do want to build on this work, all these small pieces of work that are very significant in their own right, add to our history and our collective knowledge of the stories of people in our community. We started writing and applying for grants, and we were really lucky that our first grant was from the IMB Community Foundation, which we are indebted to for a long time, because that was when we were able to employ our first project officer, who happened to be Eva Castle, and we were able to work towards an exhibition which was called Celebrations, Spirit of Communities, and they're the panels on the back wall over there. We wanted to, I guess, kickstart our work with a bang and kickstart it with an acknowledgement of all the great positive and festive occasions that a lot of communities celebrate. That's often how people get to mingle and work and get to know other people in diverse communities, is through their festivals and community celebrations. So we really wanted to highlight that. And as a result of that, we got record crowds at Wollongong City Gallery. In fact, I think I know that there were loads and loads of people who'd never set foot in the gallery ever before, despite being ratepayers for a very long time, who actually came to see that exhibition, and we're really proud of that. But we weren't only keen on highlighting personal stories. We were also keen to highlight the places of significance to migrants in our region. So the factories that our mums and our aunts worked in and sweated over, and where our dads and our male relatives came to work and slog, and some unfortunately got injured in. We wanted to highlight those places of significance where, in fact, many people made a lot of friendships and got to learn how to speak English. So places of significance of importance to migrants was the other area of work that we focused on. And in fact, we got money for research around places of significance. And in fact, that research carried out by Meredith Walker, Louise Tom and Glenys Cummins has formed the foundation of a lot of other work that we've carried out throughout the successive years. In fact, that research collected over 300 images, which forms part of our images database, which is another big piece of work that we did, and also spawned Stamina, which is that project over there, which was focusing on the textile, clothing and footwear industry of the 1940s and 70s. And that focused on the work that migrant women engaged in. And we were hoping actually to develop an app where you could go and visit the various buildings where there were factories in the Illawarra, but unfortunately we didn't get enough funding for that, if anyone's out there. We also then researched the Maltese Community Club here, the George Cross Falcons Club in Cringilla. This is an example of a small but significant building that is a lifeline to the Maltese community. No one would know about it if they drove through Cringilla, to be quite honest, but the Maltese community know all about it. And we wanted to highlight how significant those ethnic clubs were to the community and how they brought people together for fun, but also for a lot of support. And the Maltese Falcons Club is an example of so many other clubs like that. The Ukrainians, unfortunately, their club's gone. It was sold to the WEA, and there's no record of that. There's no, who knew that there were a significant community of Ukrainians in the Illawarra, only 30 years ago. We haven't only confined our research to post-World War II migration. With early work conducted by Zofia Laba and Barbara Manzur in the Polish community and volunteers who were researching the stained glass work of John Radetzky. We also got some funding to look at the migrants who were here that were culturally diverse prior to World War II, because we knew that the community was not totally Anglo-Celtic at that time, and we were able to build on that and look at subsequently the people who tantalised our palates and changed our palates forever, which is the food business in the corner over there. That's an exhibition that's coming up, just to highlight that we have been a diverse community for a really long time, not just post-World War II. Another major initiative that was run at the Regional Gallery in parallel with the modern art exhibition called Generations was the Hopes and Dreams exhibition. And to me, that was one of our most poignant pieces of work, where people were able to, through the description and through their recollection of objects that they brought with them or that they made here in Australia, or documents that they had, or images, they were able to tell the stories of the hopes and dreams that they had before they came to Australia, and the hopes and dreams that they had for Australia. And that's that work is still very significant in terms of really understanding the emotion around migration and movement to another country. But in the background of all these pieces of work that we were working on over the years was a book called Every Story Counts. So this was a project that had a long gestation, but was a magnificent outcome. And this is a book, it's highlighted over there, and it's still available if anyone wants to purchase it. It was a book researched by Meredith Walker, who's one of our most significant heritage advocates in Australia, and designed by Gregor Cullen, who is a very significant artist and designer, and we're really lucky to have him here with us. And this work was not about capturing and having a definitive history of migration to the Illawarra. That wasn't what it was about. It was a capacity building book. This was about trying to put together a guide that would help people to understand how best to collect and record stories so that they could go into archives, for example, or go into the State Library, so that we could keep the records in either in family collections, if people wanted to keep them there, but also to deposit them formally into other institutional bodies, so that we have this as a legacy. They're just some of the examples that you can go around after and check out and read more about the various exhibitions and the research and the publications that we have. But I guess tonight really is a celebration to recognise the collaboration that we have with the Wollongong University of Wollongong Library and Archives. This kind of collaboration is exciting. It creates energy and value to both organisations. And it provides a great example of the value of institutions in collaborating with community groups. In addition, it provides an ongoing avenue for the formal archiving, potentially, of material from migrant communities, which I'm really excited about, to be digitised in an institution that can help to ensure the material isn't lost. And it's great to see, actually, some of the material from the archive. So this is fascinating, the roll book from East Corrimal Public School. It's got more diverse names than English names. And the video in the corner of the English language classes where some of the early migrant women went to. My mum's in there, I didn't know that. It's so exciting. Wait till she sees it. So they're the kinds of things, it's like they're treasures now. They're really important in terms of understanding who the people are in our city today. I think that with these rich and broad and comprehensive material that is researched and archived and stored for future generations, we can share our experiences of today, and they can form the basis of our tomorrow. And they can form the basis of other cultural works, of movies, of theatre, of other visual arts projects. More importantly, though, and more significantly, one of the reasons I'm involved in this kind of work is because I think that a strong sense of history and heritage brings a strong understanding of who we are as the people that we are today, and also of the community that we are today. It also provides an avenue for bringing people together as people, not as labels, with people with a common experience and opportunities to share different perspectives. It allows cross-cultural communication in ways that builds respect and understanding. And more importantly, it builds a platform for curiosity and growth and strengthens a city and its people. And in closing, I guess I just want to say that I think we need more collaborations like this. We need more collaborations to gather ground, and we need to be more boastful about our tremendous assets and have the confidence to showcase our work. I think coming from Wollongong, I think we downplay a lot of our benefits. I think that working class ethic sort of just, sits in there, and you get a bit shy and you go, no, we don't really have that much stuff that's really good. But really, when you look at, just scratch a little bit, we've got amazing, amazing things to showcase. But we need to strategise collectively so that we have a greater impact. And we need to work with our city leaders to attract both government and philanthropic resources to our city to support our diverse and vibrant cultural heritage. This will make our city stronger and richer. I know Hobart's got Mona and Queensland's got Goma, but perhaps Illawarra can have Irma, Illawarra Regional Museum and Arts. Irma, I like Irma better. But we can work towards that. We've got lots of energy in small groups. We need to come together to make a river flow more strongly. I know Margie will thank people in her closing, but I would particularly like to highlight the generosity of both Eva Castle and Gregor Cullen, who have dedicated long hours and resources to making sure that the MHP is showcased in its best light. I get quite emotional. And thanks to I know others have contributed as well, but I just wanted to highlight that it's been really amazing that in a short period of time, we've been able to pull our energies to deliver this. And thanks also to Philippa and Karen as well. Thanks to the University of Wollongong Library and to the archives, and to Michael Organ for having that first conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Franca, and I think you've just laid the bedrock for some very strong conversations, fruitful conversations, for when the formal proceedings have concluded. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who will be delivering the key address, Hakan Haman. Hakan is the Chief Executive Officer of Multicultural New South Wales and has been accredited for his transformation of the agency, reaching across the state to develop policies that help new migrants settle successfully into our harmonious and democratic society. Harman holds a Bachelor of Commerce and a Master of Public Administration. His extensive experience as a leader in both public and private sectors, and has held the role of Director Operations CFO for both the New South Wales State Library and Community Relations Commission. which means that Hakan understands libraries, records, archives and so forth. Please join me in welcoming Hakan Haman. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that wonderful introduction and warm introduction, Margie. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I too would like to just begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the people that we're gathered, the land that we're gathered on today, and to pay my respects to their elders past and present. That's not lip service for me, even though I muddled that up. It's really important, and I will talk a little bit more about what connection with our culturally diverse communities and our Indigenous communities has meant to us along our journey of transformation. It has indeed been a period of transformation for multicultural New South Wales, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about that as well. But look, firstly, if I could just start by telling you a little bit about myself. My name is Hakan Haman. I was born in Istanbul in 1967. My parents and I, my one older brother, we migrated to Australia in 1977 as a 10-year-old. I started school. I was looking at some of the photos with my hair parted in the middle, and I couldn't speak a word of English. We arrived in November in 1977, and I commenced Year 6 the year after with no English whatsoever. And just recently I was on a panel, a CFO to CEO transition panel, actually just on Monday, and some people asked me, about my career, and I said, really, if somebody said to me in Istanbul back sort of so many years ago that I would be standing here in Wollongong now, or at the hotel I was at on Monday and speaking as the CEO of Multicultural New South Wales, it just would not have even in my wildest dreams. And I think for me, that's where I'd like to start as Australians. Maybe there's a white elephant in the room. It's about, people talk about reclaiming Australia. I don't know who we're going to reclaim it from, because in terms of having the most wonderful, vibrant, diverse Indigenous culture anywhere on earth that has existed for almost 50,000 and possibly longer, and in its richest tapestry when European settlement arrived on the shores of Australia, they too themselves, our first settlers, were diverse. The first fleet, there was probably up to 17 different diverse groups on that. And yes, very much I think we have to acknowledge, and we do acknowledge, that it's the British colonial history, our institutional framework and democratic principles that have made us the strong nation that we are, without doubt. But it is migration that is inherently embedded in our DNA, irrespective of where we come from. And it is these stories, and in my case, as a proud Australian, of very proud Turkish heritage. And, hearing Franca speak, the passion with which I was sitting there thinking, how am I going to follow up on that? Because it's impossible to follow up. And I know Margie sort of went through all the statistics about Wollongong as well, and the Illawarra, and I had all of that and as well. So I'll skip through those, and I'll tell you about myself, tell you about my agency. If there are any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer as well. But yes, so my story is... arrived here as a 10-year-old. I did not do that well at high school. I left, I went to TAFE part-time. I did an associate diploma of business/accounting. I went to university part-time after that, my Bachelor of Commerce, and I did my Master of, I did my CPA program before then, and also my Master of Public Administration. And my first job was at the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. My father said, son, go into a bank and stay there till you retire. And he was very devastated when I said to him, Dad, I'm leaving. I left after 3 years. He said, how can you leave just 3 years after starting a job? And I joined Burns Philp, worked with them. By then I'd started my studies and then we were taken over by Unilever. I worked with that organisation for a number of years, and then I worked for a number of private sector organisations before joining the public sector in 2002. And at that time, it was the Community Relations Commission. It had recently been renamed the Community Relations Commission. I'm going to give you a little bit of background about that history as well, because I've got Chris here as well from the Multicultural Communities Council of Illawarra, who we work very closely with. They celebrated their 40th year last year, together with the SBS and FECA, and these are the institutions that were right there at the commencement with the dismantling of the White Australia policy and the commencement of multicultural principles being embedded as a policy of Australia. And then from there, as Agi mentioned, I did spend some time at the State Library of New South Wales as the Director of Operations. Probably the best 3.5 years of my life. I had to pinch myself every single day going to work, seeing exhibitions, the collections, the first chest of Governor Lachlan Macquarie, some of the just unbelievable collections of recording the history of European settlement in Oceania region, the world's most greatest collection of records. I think it's probably valued at close to $3.5 billion now. I think it's a huge jewel in the crown of this state. Coming to Multicultural New South Wales now. The Ethnic Affairs Commission was created, and next year we will be celebrating our 40th anniversary in 1977. In the year 2000, at the time, I believe multiculturalism was a dirty word, and no doubt you all know that it's a dirty word in some quarters of the world now. And maybe some people think it's a really unusual word, even in Australia. So at the time we were renamed as the Community Relations Commission, and I believe, and some of you may remember, there was some community opposition to that, and the word for a multicultural New South Wales was left in our name as an addendum. And fast forward to 2013, I believe it was Premier O'Farrell and Minister Dominello who made a decision at the end of the term of a long-standing chairman, Dr. Stepan Kerkasharian, who was both the chairman of our commission and also the chief executive officer of our agency. He actually recruited me, and I always say, isn't this wonderful? Because the first gig I had as CEO of the Community Relations Commission was to represent Minister George Souris and Minister Victor Dominello, and I actually got up and I said, how fantastic is this? I'm, Hakan, I'm an Australian, Turkish heritage individual. I was recruited to the public sector by an Armenian Australian individual, and I'm here representing a Greek ancestry minister and an Italian ancestry minister. Where on earth would you get that? And I'm so proud and privileged to be able to doing that. And I think that does speak about who we are as individuals, and we should never ever lose sight of that. Never ever lose sight of it's our individual stories that make up who we are as a nation. And so in the face of seeing discrimination, harassment, racism, and yes, it happens, we don't have it perfect, but I think in the face of that, we need to stand up and call it. We need to stand up and embrace each other as people, as Franca said, because at the end of the day, that's what we are. And I believe more and more, in terms of the impact of overseas conflicts and overseas issues and how they impact my own agency's work, how they impact my own extended family and friends, and how I see it impacting our local communities, it is so important for us to stand united, to ensure that we do not allow anybody to chip away at the social cohesion and the community harmony that we as Australians have worked so hard to maintain, so to ensure that that continues with generations to come. Now, I know that's actually an issue. I believe that's the lovely George Bartolo.
Yes.
I mean, I see him now and comes up, Harkin, we've got to look after the Maltese community. We've put in an application. Yeah, what a wonderful individual and a contributor to our state, and very handsome man too. Look, it's just the stories, and I think the history is just unbelievable. But I'd like to share with you, if you don't mind, I know some of you are standing up, I hope you don't, I'd just like to share with you the journey that I've had over the past 3 years and what my agency does. So Multicultural New South Wales, we have 2 ministers I have that are responsible for our legislation. Firstly, it's the Premier, Premier Mike Baird, and Minister for Multiculturalism, Minister John Ajaka. So my annual report, when it's prepared, it goes off with a letter to both of those individuals, and they present our annual report in Parliament. Multicultural New South Wales, we have a grants program, and I think Franca mentioned, we've supported, when I look around, a lot of these organisations and indeed this project we've provided funding for. I would love to have more funding to be able to support more projects like this. And so a grants program forms a significant part of what we do. Last year we were very successful, and our minister led the charge and doubled funding for a particular grants program around social cohesion. As you know, there is a lot of talk globally around countering violent extremism. So we see this as an issue that impacts all of society. It's not about a particular community. If it's now predominantly, we have issues in Syria and Iraq, and that conflict that's been raging there for many years, that's displaced millions of people. And so it impacts, like any other conflict, it impacts local communities here in New South Wales. So we developed a grants program around, we call Compact, that's communities in partnership taking action. Not too dissimilar to the action you've taken to create this. But in our case, it's about building a coalition of many organisations, 36 of them in fact, that have come around 14 specific projects to ensure that our youth are not caught up in being radicalised and are diverted from and given appropriate pathways to ensure that they take a better path when faced with issues that they have to deal with. Globalisation, access to the internet, these are things that our individuals, our youth are facing from a day-to-day basis. So our grants program is significantly important to us. We've got a community engagement role. We have regional advisory councils, and so each of our advisory board members chair a regional advisory council right throughout the state. We have a process within the New South Wales government that ensures every single agency must have a multicultural plan. And I think I remember Franca saying you worked at Multicultural Health, so you would be very well aware of the reporting requirements. So my agency assesses the delivery of cultural diversity plans and ensures that they're effective. We also assist agencies to develop better plans. So it's a significant part of what we do. We undertake events, awards, programs and festivals ourselves to celebrate cultural diversity. And that's a big part of what we do. We bring together 1,500 people each year for a harmony dinner in March. And probably the last category that I would say is our language services program. We provide interpreting and translation services in over 100 languages. So that's Multicultural New South Wales, and over the past 3 years we have led a transformation. The things that we're responsible for are, we co-chair the Settlement Immigration Planning Committee for New South Wales. We represent the New South Wales Government at a federal level in terms of advocating for better outcomes for newly arrived migrants. And you may be aware there are some 70,000 people that come to New South Wales each year, in addition to the humanitarian entrance that we onboard. And we've been helping Professor Shergold with the additional intake that we committed to as a result of the Syria and Iraq conflict. So these are the coordinating activities that we get involved in as Multicultural New South Wales. And the The language services component is a big focus area for my agency this coming year. We have rolled out, we used to have an office down here. Some of you may have been disappointed by that. We did close that small office. They were predominantly taking translation bookings. So we partnered with Service New South Wales and they're providing those bookings for us now. So I do genuinely mean that going from 4 shopfront outlets, we've actually gone to about 90 shopfront outlets, increasing the access to our services. But getting back to this, and getting back to why I feel so privileged to have been invited down today. I genuinely feel extremely privileged and honoured to be invited down today to participate in this outstanding event. And I do want to touch on one other thing. Migration Heritage Centre, which was running out of the Powerhouse Museum. That was a facility. Franca and I had some conversations on the side about this. It was an online Migration Heritage Centre that has been recording similar stories. It was funded by the Community Relations Commission and the Ethnic Affairs Commission for a whole range of, a long period of time. The Powerhouse Museum, it no longer became part of their future strategies. So I did successfully negotiate to relocate those collections across to the State Library of New South Wales. And it is in their possession. And there are plans, not funded, but there are plans and work, and we are continuing to advocate for. New South Wales is the only state that does not have a physical presence of a Migration Heritage Museum. So when I visited the one in Victoria, I haven't visited the one in South Australia yet, and I understand that's better than the one in Victoria. I was so impressed by the one down in Victoria. And I know our colleagues at the State Library are committed, and the other institutions as well. So I share your vision and I share your commitment. We have to keep up just down that path and just keep pushing and saying, look, our state deserves, as the first state in Australia, not only were we the first state where we settled, but we're also the first state to actually adopt multiculturalism as a policy of the state, following the Canadians. We're the second in the world. So this is very important, and I'd like to finish off by congratulating you and thanking you for all the hard work that has gone into putting this exhibition together, and to just acknowledge again my own commitment and the commitment of Multicultural New South Wales to continue to support such endeavours, and thank the University of Wollongong again. Thank you.
How can we not be struck by the vision, the passion, the energy and the conviction of our guest speakers? And I hope that you will be compelled to contribute to the projects that Franca and the Migrant Heritage Project are putting forward to capture, curate and chronicle, and importantly archive and preserve the migrant history of this region. For those who want to revisit tonight or share it with friends and colleagues, a video of this evening's launch will be available soon on the UOW Library's Migration to the Illawarra online exhibition webpage. And we'll share that via Facebook and Twitter. Yep, we're in all the social media channels. Thanks have already been expressed, but I'm compelled to say thank you again to the Migrant Heritage Project, along with our recently appointed exhibitions coordinator, Philippa Webb, who've overseen the development and presentation of this exhibition, along with UOW archives staff and library staff. And in particular, thanks to our guest speakers, Hakan Haman and Franca Faci. Thank you.